Welcome to Wrestling Over Everything, everybody. We are a very funny podcast, wrestling-centric, out of the Central Valley of California. I'm Andrew, that's Dusty.
Yeah, I think funny and wrestling-centric deserve to be on parallel. We're trying to be as funny as we are wrestling, but sometimes maybe it's more wrestling than it is funny. Who knows?
Listen, the attempt is there. You know, I if it was only wrestling, I would DDT myself, Dusty.
Out of existence.
So, yeah. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and our podcast app thing. However you absorb this stuff, sign up for it. I appreciate it. Okay. We're also on.
I assume you're already signed up. Just hit a button that's next to the thing you hit all the other buttons for. You know. That's
very simple button pushing situation. We're on Blue Sky at WOE Wrestling. We are on Instagram at WOE_wrestling, I think. And then we're on Twitter somehow. You know what I mean? And so just follow us on the stuff. Now, this week we're doing another like match breakdown / wrestler bio episode. I'm really excited about the match. And hearing Dusty, I don't have a bio, so Dusty's bio thing. We're doing match first this week. I think it's a good little switch them up. We're going to see how this goes. We did the bios first previously. We're going match first now.
Yeah, we're just switching it up for ourselves. You know, got to keep it spicy. For Andrew and I's creative relationship has been going for a long time. We got to spice things up, so we're doing match first.
Yeah. The next week we're gonna role play as the Furnace and LaFawn. So the match that we went with, let me think. I can't remember what number I picked. Was it 17?
I don't remember.
Put you on the spot here, but I picked a number, and the match was Sting versus Ric Flair from the first Clash of Champions.
You are correct. 17. Wow.
It's a couple weeks in a row that I've got. That's a couple times in a row that I've gotten the number right, which is good because my memory has been concerning lately, like really bad. You know how many times I got to push the start car? I push the button and the car starts. You know.
Right.
Sit down, push the button, put my seatbelt on, push the button, turn my car off. Because I forgot that I initially turned the car on.
The other day, I drove up into the driveway. My wife's car was in front of me. I thought that I'd put the car in park. Car still in drive. Almost ran into my wife's car. So, you know.
Very funny. I wish I had a video of Dusty panicking, trying to find the brake.
So
I guess this is growing up. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Every other week we're covering a famous match in wrestling history that I think Andrew should see. And the viewing public as a whole, if you've never seen the matches, go ahead and check them out. Most of them have been picked due to quality and historical importance. Some of them, like the Chamber of Horrors, just for giggles for me. But this week we're covering Ric Flair versus Sting from the first Clash of Champions. A little bit of backstory. Sting is fairly new to the wrestling business.
Can I guess his name? Can I guess his age?
Go ahead and guess it.
I think he's like early 20s, right? Like, do you know his age?
I am checking in right now to double check.
Because I'm thinking Crow Sting. Obviously not a spring chicken.
Right.
Not a sting chicken going cacaw, you know. Yeah, that was so bad.
Yeah.
I'm guessing Crow Sting is like 34, 35. So I'm guessing this Sting maybe 23 years old.
He is actually, if my math is right, 29 when this match happens.
How the fuck old was Crow Sting?
He's born in 1959. So Crow
he's the same age as my dad.
Yeah.
God damn.
So Crow Sting's in his mid-30s. That's a tough look. Emo Sting in his mid-30s. That's a dude we all know.
No, that's fucking late 30s because this is 11 years previous, right? This is in 1986, this match, isn't it?
No, this match is in 1988.
Oh, okay.
So,
But that's still 9 years.
yeah,
So he's 48.
He's
38, I mean.
yeah, he's like that's a tough look. I didn't know that. That diminishes Crow Sting in my mind a little bit. That's elder emo
Yeah,
Sting.
he's
Yeah.
he's that's crow's feet Sting.
There he is.
I'm back, baby.
Yeah.
It's I assumed because he looked older than 23, 24 in this. If I just saw
Yeah.
a picture of him, I wouldn't have guessed that. I just didn't think Crow Sting was so old. So and I thought this was 1986. So there was a few things going on here. But
He's so cruel.
yeah, 1959.
Yeah.
He is God damn it. He is a month younger than my dad. Sting's almost 70.
Yeah. I mean, he's still looking good. Could use a tan, the old Sting.
I mean, he definitely he doesn't look good, Dusty.
He
definitely just wears makeup.
For being 70,
he looks tall.
For being 70, I'm giving it to Sting. You know, he's doing okay.
I'd give it to Sting.
So in 1985, Sting breaks into wrestling in California and is teamed with the Ultimate Warrior as Flash. He's not quite Sting yet. He's Flash.
My aunt married a guy who was a really big fat guy, and he couldn't really move very well. He talked like this, and he moved so slow. My dad called him Flash.
Classic turnaround nickname. Big guy, tiny. Yeah, it's tiny
big
guy,
tiny.
Yeah.
So, slow guy Flash.
Yeah. He was teamed up with Jim Justice Hellwig, a harbinger of things to come from the old Ultimate Warrior. And they were
Was his name Justice or Jim Justice?
Jim Justice Hellwig is
that's
at
so
least
sick.
They were part of Power Team USA in the All California Championship Wrestling League. It was a 4-man team, Andrew, just so you know, that featured Garland Glory Donahue and Mark Commando Miller. This is not a. Yeah, this is as an
that
aside.
Team, Dusty. I feel like that team. I feel like they fuck. I feel like that team fucks.
Well, I was going to ask you,
Glory Donahue.
Are you familiar with the Power Team, the Christian weightlifting team? Yeah. That's anytime I see something
doing a bunch of cocaine and blowing up those really thick water balloon holder canister things with only their lungs, tearing phone books in half, rolling up frying pans with their bare hands with the power of
with
Jesus.
The power of Christ and cocaine. I'm not ever really sure. I was never totally sure how tearing the phone book in half was to the glorification of the Lord, but I'll leave that to the Power Team. I had a Power Team poster when I was a kid where they were all holding swords.
I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me, Dusty.
Yes, I guess that's true. Me. When you tear phone book, you tear the phone book to the least of these. So
do you what was Donahue's full name?
Donahue was Garland Glory Donahue.
Okay, because I found a guy named Brian Donahue who's a wrestler, and I think I found my next wrestling bio. Look at this! Look at this fucking guy! Look at this guy!
Oh man, that's the Bobby Eaton that you order off Temu?
Yeah, he's the Dublin Destroyer, bro.
Oh, that's adequate looking Bobby Eaton. Is what that is. Yeah, not quite beautiful.
Presentable Bobby Eaton.
I was Kid Gorgeous, then I was just Kid Mo. So they quickly leave Power Team USA, but as a team, they wrestle in Continental, the CWA, and the UWF. When that is where they become the Blade Runners, and Sting changes his name from Flash to Sting. So good move from Steve Borden there. Flash, not as good a name as Sting.
Sting is a much better name than Flash.
Yeah.
I completely agree with you on that. And
The
I'm sure
Ultimate
the Flash existed at that time.
right, and Ultimate Warrior was known as Blade Runner Rock, and he was Blade Runner Sting, and so and
Damn it,
so they break apart, and Hellwig goes to the WWF to become the Ultimate Warrior, and Sting stays in the UWF and becomes friends with Eddie Gilbert, who's not the top star, but he's a big star there, and he tells all the management, like, this guy's gonna be a star. And the UWF was ran by Bill Watts, who ran Mid South Wrestling, and this was his attempt to try to go national to compete with the WWF and with WCW, or Jim Crockett Promotion as it was back then. So he's in some feuds there, but then Jim Crockett Promotions buys the UWF and they bring Sting in. And Dusty Rhodes also realizes, like, hey, this guy's going to be a star, so we need to start giving him stuff to do. And so they're kind of starting to promote Sting or show him or showcase him on TV, because the reach of WCW is much bigger than the UWF. But this
it's a good thing you stopped calling yourself Flash, baby.
Flash
I ain't never promote no son of a bitch named Flash.
Flash is a stupid name, baby. Listen to the dream.
Yeah,
it's just
you
dream,
flashy.
baby.
You ain't Flash, you flashy.
And he was one of the few guys who came over from the UWF that got pushed in the NWA. And so that's his backstory leading into the match. Ric Flair, it's pretty easy. Flair is the top guy in the NWA at this point. This is his 5th recognized title reign at the time, because they used to do, like, when he was in Puerto Rico, he would drop the belt to the babyface that was like the Puerto Rican #1 babyface, to avoid possibly getting murdered in Puerto Rico, according to him, or causing riots or whatever. But those title switches were either never acknowledged, or they flipped it back once they weren't in danger of there being a riot.
I was gonna say, goddamn, I bet Ric Flair can't go back to Puerto Rico if he just went back to the United States. It was like, yeah, I'm still the champion. I'm the Nature Boy.
Yeah,
the Puerto Rican fans are watching the TV. They're like, no, fuck that. I'm gonna kill that man.
I'm gonna kill Ric Flair when I see him. Yeah, but they would do that in Japan. They do it in Puerto Rico. They would do these short title reigns, and flip stuff, because no one was ever going to see that footage. It's like the early 80s, so no one cares.
It's just like, listen, they're foreign. They're stupid. They're not.
They're not watching. They don't get the TBS Superstation, dog. So
in watching this, I forgot it was TBS Superstation for a long time.
Yeah, the Superstation. Flair is on his 5th world title reign. He had just beaten Ronnie Garvin for the title at Starrcade 87. Flair is a heel, obviously, at this point, and the Four Horsemen are kind of in their first iteration, where it's Tully Blanchard, Arn Anderson, and Ole Anderson together with Flair, sort of forming this cool heel group that has all the belts, or that's their goal, at least, is to get all the titles.
And now, dude, I can't see Arn Anderson without seeing him slamming that dude's hand into the door.
Oh yeah, Barry
Windham. Weeks ago.
Yeah,
it was Barry. I forgot who it was, but it's just Arn Anderson just runs up and slams his hand in the car door.
right as Cactus Jack and Abdullah the Butcher pull up in their sedan, to really breaking the illusion when they pull up in a sedan to the arena early in the afternoon.
Yeah, I don't think the Abdullah the Butcher should be riding in an Oldsmobile, but
Yeah, I don't want to imagine how he gets anywhere. I like to imagine that he's corporeal and just kind of appears wherever he needs to be.
Imagine pulling over a car and it's Cactus Jack and Abdullah the Butcher, but like they're characters.
Yeah, and they're still listening to Christmas music because Cactus Jack's still maniacal.
Yeah, he's already got enough concussions for that. I watched a thing the other day, by the way, where Cactus Jack was talking to Maven, because Maven's like a YouTube star now, and they were doing like rank all these things by how badly they hurt,
Oh, I saw the thumbnail
And
for that. I haven't watched it yet, but
it's interesting. It's interesting.
yeah.
Some of them I'm like, okay, come on, Cactus. But he said when The Rock hit him with those chairs, and I'm sure you've heard this, he realized that having his hands handcuffed behind his back made it so much worse because it forced his shoulders and like upper body to tense up because it's all like held in
Yeah.
one position, and tensing up makes it way worse. He said that when the first one hit and it went all the way down his spine, he was like, "Oh no," because he remembered what they had planned.
Yeah. Well, what they had planned was
But
less than
anyway,
even what happened, so that's even worse.
yeah. So they show that, and they're like, so they're talking about the chair shots, and then he's like, oh yeah, the famous one with the Rock, blah 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 blah, and then a couple minutes later they go, okay, how bad do the steps hurt? And he's like, well, the steps can hurt really fucking bad. Like he's like, feel this thing on my knee. His knee has like a bone sticking out because he hit the steps wrong one time, and he's
Yep.
like, and also, if you're laying on the ground and the Rock throws them on you on your head, and there's a video of freaking Cactus Jack. I guess he was probably Mankind at the time, laying on his side, like just like almost fetal position, and the Rock is he is right in front of the announcer's table on the ground, and the
Yeah.
Rock is standing in the ring with the steps in his hand, and he just dumps those steps onto Mick Foley's head
Yeah.
from the ring over the ropes. And Cactus Jack's like, yeah, well, if the Rock dumps them on your head, it hurts really bad. And he's like, my idea, don't worry. But it's like, goddamn, Dwayne,
Yeah.
what the fuck are you doing to this guy?
Not the, not the safest worker with the old Mick. I haven't heard anybody
Yeah,
else really
dude.
talk about. I've never heard Steve Austin talk about The Rock taking liberties with him, but yeah, I remember that steps thing because like a lot of times you'll see similar spots all the time. And you're like, oh, okay, that's not like unheard of. But a dude standing in a ring throwing the steps onto a prone opponent who has no way to block it definitely sticks out. You know,
Dude, it was awful. Like, I hated
yeah.
seeing it. It was just like a quick clip, and I'm like, oh my God.
Not even the worst thing The Rock did to Mick Foley.
Not even the worst thing. That is
Not even the
true.
worst
That
thing.
is absolutely true.
Speaking of terrible things, so the backstory to this Clash of Champions is super interesting and super funny and gets to the underhandedness that you love of professional wrestling in particular. So
Oh, I love dirt balls.
generally back in the day you could either go to the show live, you could watch clips if they showed clips on TV, or you could go to a closed circuit location and watch like in a movie theater if you wanted to watch like a
Yeah.
big show. So that's how a lot of people that's how people watched the first WrestleMania. The Starcades early on were closed circuit, but pay-per-view starts coming along, and WrestleMania 3 did a really big number at the time for pay-per-view in 1987, and so pay-per-view was expanding, and of course this caused the Jim Crockett promotion and WWF to like butt heads with each other. So the first night that the Starcade 87 is on Thanksgiving night, and this is the first Starcade I believe that's going to be on pay-per-view. Vince essentially creates the Survivor Series to run the same night on pay-per-view because he knows that most pay-per-view providers can only do one event per night. And they've just made all that money with WrestleMania 3. So he's like, hey,
Yeah.
if you don't carry our show, if you carry the other show, we're not going to give you WrestleMania 4. You're fucking out on
Yeah.
on WrestleMania 4. You have to carry the Survivor Series, not carry Starcade. So that messes up Starcade, and Starcade ran in Chicago instead of in Greensboro, South Carolina, where it had ran before, so that it could draw theoretically more fans and expand the NWA footprint. So they pissed
Yeah.
off their fans in their home base and got blocked on pay-per-view, except for a few providers.
Get Vinced, bitch.
Yeah.
I listen, and I'll say that. I say that now, knowing the man's a super villain. I'm not
Right.
I'm not rooting for the man.
That and so then the second event that the NWA runs is called Bunkhouse Stampede, which is a really terrible gimmick match that Dusty Rhodes came up with. They aren't all hits, but the cable companies after the Survivor Series incident were like, "Hey, knock it off! Don't run don't run a pay per view at the same time the other people are running a pay per view." So he was like, "Okay." So he ran. That's where the initial Royal Rumble was invented, and it was run on USA Network as a not a pay per view, but ran the same day as the NWA pay per view. So not for free, but essentially you could watch the Royal Rumble on cable, or you could pay to watch Bunkhouse Stampede. So again, got Vince blocked, but the
Vince
poor
bitch,
NWA
and the Royal Rumble
yeah.
probably cooler.
So WrestleMania 4 is coming up, and so now it's finally time. The tables are turned. The NWA decides to put on Clash of Champions 1 on TBS, not for free, obviously, but on cable TV to counter WrestleMania 4. And later we could talk about the cards, but that is why they put Sting versus Flair in the main event of this show, because Sting is on the rise as a babyface, but he's not established as a top guy when they do this match. But they're essentially like, you can see the NWA champion in the main event against this new hot babyface without having to pay any additional money for it. So this is where Jim Crockett Promotions finally gets to put the screws to get crocked, dude.
Get crocked, bitch.
Yeah. So that's the whole backstory leading into this match. We have judges at ringside. They announce it's a 45-minute time limit. Our judges at ringside are Gary Juster, who was a wrestling promoter.
He's a member of the board of directors for the NWA.
Yeah, and Sandy Scott, who was a wrestler and a referee. That guy has credentials.
Checks out so far.
Penthouse Pet of the Year, Patty Mullen. Interesting.
I'm gonna go heel. I'm gonna go heel announcer right now. Bet she's done her fair share of wrestling.
Yeah, they really had to. I think Jim Ross has a similar line at one point where he's like,
"Yeah, he said something like, she's seen her fair share of action or something like that."
Yeah. The guy who plays Eddie Haskell on the New Adventures of Leave It to Beaver, whose name I did not get.
That is Kent Osmond.
All right. And Jason Hervey, they say star of the Wonder Years. That's not true. He's at least third billed on the Wonder Years. But anyway, he's friends with Bischoff. Wildly. I think they're friends.
He looks like he kind of is like a poor man's God, what's the guy's name? It keeps coming in and going out. The son from Married with Children.
Oh yeah, Danny Zuko. Is it Danny Zuko?
No.
Who's Danny Zuko?
Danny Zuko is John Travolta from Grease.
Oh, Sandy.
I'm talking
Scott.
about David Faustino.
Faustino.
Sandy Scott. Sandy Scott. Yeah, David Faustino. I talked to David Faustino on the phone like a year ago. It was very weird. I was hanging out with a guy who's in radio, and he's like, "Hey, how's it going?" He's like, "Hey," he's like, "I want to introduce you to somebody," and he just hands me the phone and says, "Hey, it's David Faustino." And I said,
"Oh
David
man, really?"
Faustino. Yeah.
I can't believe my luck. So
I've never seen the Wonder Years.
It was good. I mean, I think, is it Fred Savage? I think Fred Savage is the star of that
Fred
show.
Savage.
Yeah. I don't understand why 60% of this panel are non-wrestling people. Like, how you could have one non-wrestling person, but over half of this panel don't know anything about, have no credentials in wrestling to speak of.
Hey, you shouldn't. They're the judges? in this thing that you're supposed to. This is supposed to be a legitimate, like, athletic endeavor, and you've got Penthouse Pet of the Year Patty Mullen, one of the judges, and this isn't just because she's a woman. Like, Eddie Haskell shouldn't be there either. But
Right.
once we get down the line, there's a reason that I'm singling her specifically out
Yeah.
in this, and we'll talk about it at the end of the match. But what are we? What? How? Why did Dusty? Dusty was around. This is Dusty.
Yeah. This is Dusty.
What the fuck was Dusty thinking?
I think if I could track it, the idea might have been the WWF uses a lot of celebrities. We also need celebrities.
Come out and wave.
Yeah, Bob Uecker wasn't deciding who was going to be WWF champion at WrestleMania 4. And Bob Uecker might be more qualified than these other three. At least he was in athletics.
He's a sportsman.
Aside from Patty Mullen, who, as we mentioned, has seen her fair share of action. But
yeah,
it's
Cindy Lauper. She's from New Jersey. That's close.
Yeah, yeah. It's so yeah, I don't understand why they did this at all. I want to know, because obviously you've never seen this match, and this is the purpose of this particular segment. What did you think of this match?
It was great. 45 minutes is way too long. It's too long. I don't need matches this long. It's better. I can tell you one thing though. It's better than an hour. It's if my calculations are correct, it's 15 minutes better than an hour. It is.
That's an extra quarter star from you, that it's 15 minutes less than an hour.
It's 25% shorter. So like, I said way too long. I don't think it's way too long. They did a really good job of like keeping engaged. They crescendoed to the end. But when the story that you're trying to tell is this young whippersnapper keeps hulking up, every once in a while he just doesn't feel pain for some reason. And then this other guy is a veteran that just is comfortable in this situation, going into deep waters, and he'll just keep coming no matter what. You can only hulk the guy up so many times. Yeah. Sting hulks up like 6 times in this match.
Yeah.
So it seems to mean less when you are when it keeps happening, right? And also. The one thing that I always realized that in these matches in like the early 90s, the 80s to early 90s, and I'm sure this existed like as far back as you can go from there, is the crowd noise. The crowds now, even when you're in the building, the crowds don't do what they did back then. Back then, the crowds are yelling like it's a high school wrestling match and everybody's the wrestler's mom, right?
Right.
We're like, it's a constant yelling sound with big pops. And now it's almost like, it's not silence. It's not like, Japan, like, I don't know if wrestling in Japan's the same way, but like Pride in Japan, there was a lot of moments of silence because they're like, that's just how Japanese crowds watch to this thing, and then there would be big explosions of sound, right?
Yeah,
and that's kind of how it is now. It's like, go ahead.
Oh, in Japanese wrestling, it's a lot of like, it is very respectful because it's treated like a legitimate, like a sport there. So there's a lot of silence, and then when someone does something particularly impressive, where there's a really big move, there's like an ooh or an ah that kind of goes through the whole crowd. So it's very similar.
Yeah.
But
okay, so. And so with nowadays in wrestling, I think there's a couple things going on. I think I don't know if it's the way that everything is mic'd, like the position of the microphones or the function of modern microphones. I think it's probably the latter, where modern microphones pick up very specific things rather than full ambience,
Right.
And the microphones back then picked up the entire room of sound. You couldn't they weren't these like, I'm sure they had them, but they weren't these like super nice like condenser microphones like the ones we're working with right now. You know what I mean?
Right.
So like my computer is making a very loud noise right now. It always does when I turn it on. The fans work really hard to keep it cool, so it hums when I have it on. You don't hear it in the podcast because my microphone selectively does not pick up that sound because it, like, sometimes identifies as background. So anyway, I wonder if it's that, or if it's an intentional move by like the modern wrestling promoters, mixed with the fact that people aren't just screaming at the ring the entire match anymore. You know,
Yeah,
but
I
I
think
just
there.
love that old, like, it seems like a freaking, like a VFW. You're in an old gymnasium, and it matters. It feels like it matters, Dusty.
Yeah, this venue only held 6,000 people. They were in Greensboro, North Carolina, at the Greensboro Coliseum. Um, I think it's that. I think it's also now people enjoy the performance and they know the rhythms of like when they're supposed to make noise
Yeah,
versus when they're supposed to watch.
for
And
sure.
this, not to say that everybody in here in this match was fooled into believing that this was a real athletic contest, but there was heat. Like it's
And
heat.
they at least watched as if it was a real athletic
Right.
contest.
And there were people there that probably believed like that were rooting for Sting to win and hated Ric Flair,
Yeah,
and that like and Southern wrestling like fostered that kind of rowdiness in general, and that really helps the ambiance and really helps this match. A couple of the things I really liked about this match is, like you said, they're doing easy spots. Like they know they're going 45 minutes, right?
yeah.
So, and Flair is the master of this match. Like he was the NWA champion because he could go to any town in any territory and make their top guy look great in a 60-minute match. And so he's kind of guiding Sting through this thing. They do a test of strength, and Sting wins, and Flair begs off, and then Flair gets him in the corner, and he chops him, and Sting nose sells it, like you said, and gets a huge pop out of like stuff that's so easy, and the crowd
Oh yeah.
just eats it up, and Flair's
Early
begging.
on, sorry, like one,
Oh yeah,
like a couple minutes into the match, um, a Sting is on the floor. He kips up, and they had been like kind of going back and forth before then. And Sting kips up, and as soon as he does, Flair goes, "Whoa!" Like,
yeah,
whoa, buddy, like we're not this is too scary for me. You know what
yeah,
I mean? It's not like
yeah,
whoa, like he's in awe. It's like, whoa, dude, what the fuck was that? That is basically what
yeah,
he does. And it's great. Flair, and that is one of the reasons that Flair is one of the greatest to ever do it. Um, is this is probably the most oft used phrase on our show so far. Is he's not afraid of the face in the doo doo.
yeah,
Flair wanted his face in the doo doo. He won. He probably, it was probably hard to take the belt off him. He probably had some conversations when that happened, but like
yeah.
he wasn't afraid to let the guy fuck him up for a while before he won. He eventually won the belt.
Well, and that's where the money is with a Ric Flair
Yeah,
type
for
champion.
sure.
Is
Hmm.
you Flair makes you believe the other guy can beat him, and that's how he was able to have all those successful runs as NWA champion. It's like my guy in my town is good enough to beat Ric Flair, or Hawk from the Legion of Doom is going to get a title match, which is kind of weird, but maybe he could beat Flair. And Flair.
Did Hawk get a NWA title match?
Oh yeah, Hawk. They did a Clash of Champions where Hawk wrestled him for the belt. He wrestled Ricky Morton for the belt, like as credible challengers. Where the belt is on the
Is the
line, and
Hawk match good?
it's decent. It's the same formula essentially as this. All of them
Yeah,
kind of follow a similar
yeah.
formula, but the crowd is super into Hawk because they buy him as a legitimate threat because Flair makes all of those guys look good. The knock on Flair that people tended to have was that he has the same match all the time. And the people that love Ric Flair and say he's the greatest of all time is that he could have this match with anybody anywhere, and it's going to be a match that people will pay to see and they'll come back to see the next month. So what's the
I agree
goal?
with both of those things.
Right. If like you could have your Bret Hart, where Bret Hart had interesting, great matches where he made his opponents look good, but he varied up his move set and he did
Yeah,
different things depending on his guy. Or Flair knows that Flair's got his formula of things that he does, and it works every time. Like, and I really liked the announcers here. I miss smart analytical wrestling announcing where they're doing a
Yeah.
great job selling to you at home. Sting is exuberant and he's young and he's like he one day could be the champion, but he just doesn't have the savviness that Flair has. Flair's able to take advantage of all
Yeah.
of these like all of these mistakes that Sting is making because this is his first title shot and this is Flair's millionth defense or whatever. Like it's such an easy story to watch, especially because I think they were counting on people who maybe didn't watch the NWA tuning in to their free show instead of buying WrestleMania. Like that's a story you could sell to somebody who's never watched, this particular wrestling before, and
And
someone will get it.
that's why you bring out, like, first of all, I agree. That was a great part of it, the announcing, and it matched up perfectly with the physical story that they told within their match, because they were, like I said, it was this veteran that'll go to deep waters no problem, and he's comfortable there, versus this really amped up, ready to go, ready to take his rightful, according to him, spot at the top. Like, this is everything to him. When to Flair, this is where he lives, you know.
Yeah,
But that's why what you're talking about with the, like, with the having the legitimacy of the sport, but also understanding that you're going to have some new eyes sampling your product. That's why you have Eddie Haskell there, and
right.
the Patty Mullen and Jason Hervey. You know, you don't have them as the judges, probably. Like, I'll never
Sure.
agree with that, but like, that's why you have them in the building. That's why the UFC will cut to. They don't do it anymore because only one famous person goes to the UFC now. But in the past, it was like, oh shoot, there's Anthony Kiedis, there's Leonardo DiCaprio, there's
Yeah.
like Tom Brady, there's all these guys. Like, God, I'm just mourning where the UFC used to be 7 years ago. But the it's good to have those, especially because you have your guy in the ring
Yeah.
doing what your guy does. This is the time to have a Ric Flair match, and Sting was a good dance partner for it.
Yeah, and Sting really I mean, these guys have great chemistry. Sting is great at both believably being the guy who you can't hurt and also still having sympathy when he sells. Like the Road Warriors had a problem with that where like it's hard to believe that anybody could beat up Animal. Like it's hard to garner empathy for Animal
Yeah.
as a baby face. But Sting, like, and Flair is smart. Like he goes for the knee. They work in a spot where Sting tries the splash and hits the post on the outside, and now Flair can take over and do Flair spots.
And
Um,
JR pointed out, like, what type of a huge risk he took by going for that splash, and like kind of insinuated that, like, a veteran, somebody who knew what he was doing in these matches, wouldn't have gone for something like that, you know.
Right. Like Flair's seen it all before. It's everything under the sun Flair's had to deal with. And Sting, in his exuberance will make a mistake and he's toast, which is also another classic wrestling thing, which is the heel should not be able to beat the babyface straight up in any sort of contest where the heel is doing their best and the babyface is doing their best. The babyface should win, so the heel has to cheat either through purpose or by circumstance to get ahead on the babyface. And
Yeah,
for
I completely see that and agree with that as like a generality. I think there are times that you can book uh something where the heel wins legitimately, but
Yeah, unless
um
it's like Vader,
by and
like
large, generally.
a monster heel can beat up a baby face, but like Flair's a chicken shit heel, like so
Yeah.
he's uh
Especially chicken shit heel. Yeah.
especially a
It's my
chicken shit
favorite
heel.
type of heel.
Yeah,
My favorite type of heel.
the best part of this match, and they do like they keep. I really felt like even for 45 minutes, even 1988 style wrestling, they really keep your attention the whole time. And then of course it culminates. There's a minute left, and Sting finally gets the Scorpion Deathlock on, and the place is fucking going nuts. And they're doing the perfect thing where the announcer on the PA is giving the time countdown of like 45 seconds, 30
Yeah.
seconds, 15 seconds, 10, 9, and you're just watching Flair, and the referee's watching Flair, and the announcers are at 10 now, and Flair doesn't submit, and the match ends, and everybody is at like, you've left them as, without doing the title change, I feel like as big a fever pitch as you could leave them at by like just timing that up perfectly. And that's such a small, easy thing to do. Like it
Yeah, and
really
they
worked.
had a couple of really cool near falls. It really felt like beyond the timer, we were about to see a finish to this match. Like
Right.
they did a really good job of like amping up even their mannerisms and like the way they were reacting to things, and especially Flair was like he was starting to look a little bit more desperate, and he was starting to look like maybe it was slipping from his hands a little bit, and Sting looked a little bit more desperate, like I got to get this guy out of here. Like what am I going to
Yeah.
do? You know, and it was like it was a perfect. It was just so good in that respect. Like the question that I have for you is if you took these two guys, essentially just pluck them out of 1988, these two specific guys,
Yeah.
you put them in a ring to have this very specific, this same exact match, beat for beat, at SummerSlam at WWE this year, in like the main event. What do you think the crowd thinks about that match?
I think it
Because
still works.
I'm not sure I know.
Yeah, I think it still works because Ring of Honor would pull this move out every once in a while, where they'd have the 60-minute time limit draw or the 45-minute time limit draw, and it was modern guys doing a more modern style, but the beats are the same. So I think like,
Well, that's my point. It's like, are
I
they
think
going to be more
emotionally,
okay with?
I
Yeah,
think yeah, with the emotion, with the emotionality, because they want Sting to win so bad. Like
yeah,
they hate
yeah.
Flair so much. So I think it's more based on an audience versus the match itself. Because you can have a lot of WWE matches even now are very simply laid out. Like AEW is a different story, but like they're not doing crazy risk. The guys are more athletic, but you could
That's
pull
true.
this.
Yeah,
You could do this kind of match. I feel like, but and especially with the personality. Like Flair is so
yeah.
good in this match. Like the way that he sells, like vocally, where he's like, "Oh God,"
Dude,
and he's just
he was he
he's
was
going through it.
screaming a few
Yeah,
times in this match. Yeah,
you know, and
my
like,
back, my back, laying on his
and
back.
like you said, the fans bought into this idea that on a long enough timeline, my guy wins. Flair
Yeah,
eventually craps out and loses. If the time limit doesn't stop it, Flair's not getting out of that Scorpion Deathlock.
yeah.
If he has to wrestle the guy in and that's how they came back and did these matches. You know, oh, it went to 60 minutes. Now we're
It's
now
like why. Go ahead.
or
Sorry, there's a
sorry,
delay.
they're
It
like
went to 6 minutes.
whenever it goes 60 minutes. Now the rematch is 90 minutes, and then they go to a 90-minute draw, and then they go, well, it's best 2 out of 3 falls now. And then it's, you know, and now it's in a cage and there is no time limit, and then Flair wins that one by cheating, and you go, well, my guy almost fucking had him, man. And every time you pay to see your guy finally get Flair, because you're you know, and that's the genius of this style of booking. And like they instantly make Sting's a main eventer the second this match ends, because he's a guy that
Yeah,
can believably beat Ric Flair. Now you've shown it on television that this guy can hang with Flair, and the crowd loves him. So at home, even if you haven't seen Sting yet, you're on board with Sting now. Like it's such a smart move for them to promote this match and book this match this way. Uh, I just well, I really like the whole of the match, and I love the idea of the build up and the screwing over Vince after he screwed them over twice. Um, Afterwards, they go to the judges. So
mm-hmm.
Flair's fucked. His back's messed up. He's dying. He's in the corner. Oh, JJ Dillon was in a shark cage. I forgot to mention that above the ring, so he couldn't interfere. And I love
Shout out to
JJ
Paul
Dillon.
Bearer.
Yeah. JJ Dillon didn't want to get in that shark cage either. But
Dude, if I was gonna have to, you know how drunk I'm gonna get if it's like you just got to be in a shark cage for 45 minutes, like, because I just start crying up to
I
get
want
me
to.
out of this fucking shark cage.
Oh, I want to barf in this shark cage. I don't want to barf in this shark
So
cage.
sometimes I feel like I'm stuck in a shark cage within myself. Everybody's like trying to watch the match, and he's trying to have a
Yeah.
monologue from the top.
This really is a metaphor for my emotions. I gotta let the shark out, man. Shut up, JJ.
The real shark cage is the fence that I've built around my heart. I don't care that you're watching a wrestling match.
Guess what? They go the full 45. I said it. Who cares?
I said it. Who
You're already
cares?
here.
Nothing matters.
God, what God? World champion? What world champion? So they go to the judges. Patty Mullins scores it for Flair. This is Pride Rules, where you judge the entirety of the match. Because
Yep.
otherwise, I don't know how you would judge it.
Once again, not non-wrestling adjacent. Penthouse Pet of the Year, Patty Mullins.
Yep.
Scores it for Ric Flair.
Who spent the last minute of the match in his opponent's submission move. So I don't know, that would seem to tip
and
the
is
scale.
bleeding profusely from the top of his head.
Yeah. Gary Juster gives it to Sting, and Sandy Scott proclaims a draw, and they go, Flair's still the champ. Hey, there are 2 more judges. What are you What are you talking about? It's
Eddie Haskell and the guy from the Wonder Years were like, why am I even freaking here? Did anybody read my piece of paper?
I gave it the first 20 minutes as a 10-9 round for Sting, obviously. Middle 30 minutes, or middle 15 minutes, I'm going Flair.
Does anybody want to hear what I think? No, JJ Dillon. Sit in your shark cage.
I want to know why I'm not the Nature Boy. Well, I'm the one who should be the Nature
Boy. I could have been the Nature Boy. Who says he's a Nature Boy? I have to pee.
You self-appointed ass Nature Boy. So Flair and JJ celebrate. The crowd unhappy because it's declared a draw, and therefore Flair remains the champion. I can't even talk about why they put 5 people out there if they only read 3 scorecards, other than this must be a classic WCW blunder. They didn't figure out how the other 2 guys were going to vote, and they had to keep it a draw because they don't want Flair to win.
In their dreams, I mean, in their blood, to just have something awesome, and then slip on a banana peel that they put down. Like there's just no. They could have They could have just had both of those guys split.
Yeah,
one goes for Sting, one goes for Flair. It's still a draw.
Yeah. Well, and it feels like that's why Sandy Scott wrote draw. Because then you have each one of the other guys just do a split, and you're fine. But
bada bing, bada boom.
Yeah, they show fucking Jason Hervey trying to get closer to the Penthouse Pet, who has no desire to be closer to Jason Hervey.
At the very beginning, when they're introducing Eddie Haskell, the Wonder Years guy, David Faustino, is fucking pulling on the girl's arm and like trying to talk to her.
Yeah, not interested. She's here because Ted Turner asked her to be there. But he didn't know the NWA then.
The Nature Boy is in the building.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I feel like you're coming up second, to Ric Flair. This match goes down. It's like a huge historical moment. Tony Schiavone was quoted as saying the Clash of Champions was probably the biggest blow we had against Vince at the time, because this whole card rules. This match, I have the note here. Let me find it. I thought that I had put it in my notes, but I didn't because I'm stupid. Flair and Sting gets 4.75 stars from Meltzer. I
Sure. Yeah.
I'd probably give it the same. There's no finish. It's hard to give a 5-star match to a match that ends in a
Yeah.
draw. The NWA tag title match had 3.5 stars. The United States tag team title match, where the Fantastics wrestled the Midnight Express, got 4.5 stars. And even the TV title was 2.5 stars. I mean, there's a 1-star match in here, but who cares? It's only 3 minutes long. So this card for free,
And it's got Dusty Rhodes in it.
right?
So
And Hawk and Animal, goddamn Hawk and Animal,
goddamn Hawk and goddamn Animal.
yeah. Match quality wise, this blows away WrestleMania 4. WrestleMania 4, one of the all-time stinkers for a WrestleMania card. They decided to have a complete 14-man single elimination tournament for the world title on one night, which means a whole bunch of matches that are 3 minutes long. And
Did
they
we
had
watch that?
no, we've never watched. I dared, I do not dare try to get you to watch WrestleMania 4. It
You
stinks.
think I'll shut the studio down?
It stinks so hard. Rick Rude versus Jake Roberts in round 1 went to a draw at 15 minutes, -2 stars from the old Meltzer.
-2 stars. And it's
Ultimate,
Rick Rude versus Jake Roberts.
That match is the Chinlock of Doom, dude. They had no, because they're going 15 minutes, but they don't have 15 minutes worth of stuff they want to do. So it's just Rick Rude putting Jake Roberts in a chinlock for an interminable amount of time. The time's a flat circle. Jake Roberts is always in that fucking chinlock. Then Hercules versus the Ultimate Warrior. Sting's former partner on that day got a -1.5 stars. So the best match on this card got 2.5 stars, and that's Demolition defeating Strike Team for the World Tag Team titles.
Well, hey, at least they got to see Hulk Hogan versus Andre the Giant end in a double DQ
after 5 minutes and 22 seconds. Yeah, that. Dude, and it was 2 VHSs. I remember renting it when I was a kid because I was like, "Oh shit, 2 VHSs. That's twice the wrestling for one at one single price." So terrible. I mean, the end of this is good. They put the belt on Macho Man Randy Savage. That is the correct ending, but just awful matches. But in true NWA fashion, the next year they decided to run another Clash of the Champions against WrestleMania 5. They have Flair versus Steamboat 2, which is the 2 out of 3 falls match, which is considered by some to be the greatest wrestling match of all time. We've watched that match.
Banger.
The booker for the NWA at that point didn't promote the show because he thought it would hurt the house show business to give away Flair versus Steamboat on TV. So only 5,000 people showed up to the Superdome to watch that match, and WrestleMania 5 had Hulk Hogan versus Randy Savage, the explosion of the Mega Powers. So, you know, they didn't do themselves any favors. Yeah, for the next time around. This just shows you
how much marketing is success, because like if you just look at the cards, it's like there's like wrestling royalty on these shows, but like just the card for card, it's not even close. And WWE on there, this card has 25 matches bullshit.
Yeah.
And Clash of the Champions had like what, 5 matches on it?
Lean and mean, dude, for 2 hours. And you got 2 4-star plus matches.
All killer, no filler, dog. We don't need to like bloat all this. Bad News Brown doesn't need to be on your pay-per-view.
In a 20-man battle royal. That's a pretty good battle royal, though.
We don't need Coco Beware. We don't need. Sorry, I like Axe and Smash. We could do Demolition. Everybody liked Demolition at the time. You know what I
Well, if you
mean?
take Demolition off, that's the best match on the show. So
I know. So
but
okay, I'll stop that.
it's
We don't
also
need Hercules.
yeah, it's also the penultimate match. These people have been in Trump Tower, where WrestleMania 4 was held, for 4 goddamn hours. And they got to watch the Demolition versus the Strike Force right before the main event. We're actually going to watch a match from WrestleMania 4 next week. So that'll be fun.
Hell yeah,
So,
dude.
yeah.
Is it gonna be Roberts versus Rude?
No, God, no. Uh, or I'll tell you at the end, but
All right.
we'll have to do
Hey,
that.
that's a
So
little teaser.
little teaser. So yeah, this match is fantastic. Go out of your way to see it. It really showcases that in ring wise, the NWA like was so far ahead of WWF at the time in the main event scene.
Yeah.
But they had Hulk Hogan and Macho Man and Andre the Giant and fucking $1 Million Man, and that the marketing, like you said, the marketing machine was so strong, and for every great thing the NWA did, they did two things to shoot themselves in the foot.
Yeah, it's just so crazy. I mean, they had something amazing and beautiful, and this this era. It's crazy what and I understand why Bischoff did it, but what Bischoff had and what he turned it into, because even bringing in the outsiders
Yeah,
and doing the NWO and Hogan turning heel and all those things did not necessitate the rest of the stuff that he did. You could have done
right.
that and kept it iconic and kept it cool, because there were aspects of it very cool.
Yeah,
You had Scott Hall. It's very cool to have Scott Hall, period, right?
yeah.
But it's like, to see what this was and what the WCW was before all of that, and then see what it is 9 years later, and
Well, dude,
like,
there is
go ahead.
there's an entire desert of bullshit that like you get to by 1995, whenever, or 94, I guess, when Hogan comes in, that like they just kept digging their own grave with stuff, and like then and combined with the fact that wrestling gets uncool and unpopular, and then the secondary company that's southern based looks even more low rent. Like if the best version of this isn't drawing any people, why would the second version of it or like the perceived to be lesser product draw any people? And they certainly didn't help
Yeah,
themselves out at that time either. This was peak, like they could be the number one company if they had Vince's machine, because they had the better
yeah,
product. They just didn't have the machine behind it to make it work, you know, which is a bummer because
damn shame.
the NWA ruled. So I
I
want to
wonder what
do.
I wonder what wrestling looks like if Vince didn't do what he did, because it might not have ever gotten popular. We certainly very likely would not be talking on this podcast right
It probably would have stayed, and in my estimation, probably like the circus, or like when the carnival, the carnivals that set up in the parking lot like 3 times a year in your town, where like one day it's
now.
just the Save Mart parking lot, and then or your grocery store parking lot, and then all of a sudden for a week and a half you can go to the Ferris wheel. Like wrestling probably stays that, because wrestling was very healthy in most of the territories that it ran in, and it had ebbs and flows
It was just
and,
contained.
and
It was
all that. Yeah, but it
in
was
their places.
everybody was in their place, and it either died or it didn't based on the promotion and the stars and the booker and all that. But Vince going national, like if somebody else would have went national, which I think eventually,
It
if
would have
Vince
happened.
hadn't have
It would
done
have
it,
happened.
somebody would have done it.
Yeah.
That person becomes the successful person, because we look at those cards, most of those guys came from somewhere else and had already been wrestling for years and years. Same thing happened in the Attitude Era. Like by the time the Attitude Era's top stars were in it, you'd had guys who had been wrestling 10 plus years, getting great, at the thing, at their skills, all being in the same place at once. And then you have the craziness of like The Rock being a prodigy and Steve Austin being the biggest star in the world, and you've got them both with the best announcer and the best television crew and the best heel of all time, all in one
Yeah.
place. Like that's a convergence of things that doesn't happen normally. And and then underneath that you've got the next tier is also Undertaker and Kane and Mick Foley and the Triple H and all those guys that
Scotty Too Hottie. Yeah.
Scotty Too Hotty being uh, being there to boost the mid card. Like uh, it did have to go away for a while to give those guys a chance to build it back up. But I would say 87 to 89, if the NWA had a better structure, they they would have they competed really hard. It might not have been number one because the philosophy was different. There's so much blood and violence, like legitimate violence in NWA wrestling, which is why I love it. But even in the '90s, my mom would let me watch WWF. But I remember watching WCW one time, and they put a belt around a dude's neck and threw him over the top rope, like to choke him to death. And she was like, "What is this?" And I was like, "It's wrestling." And she was not as happy that
You
with
don't get it. He stole his belt.
yeah, no, that guy is a heel. It's fine that they want to kill that guy. The like Southern wrestling is so much more built on emotion in terms of getting heat, and being okay doing sensational angles than WWF was. WWF was for kids, and that's also where
That's the
they
thing.
made they made their
Whoever
money.
went whoever went national was gonna have to do that too.
Yeah,
Like it's you have to do that kind of to survive, especially since Vince realized like uh at some point he realized action figures and kids thinking these guys are superheroes is where I'm going to become a billionaire. And it's like if you go national and you don't want to go national and kind of fizzle out and break even, you know what I mean, unless you have a billionaire father who owns the Jacksonville Jaguars. It's like you
right.
have to like it's got to be whoever took it national. You don't actually have to, but like whoever took it national was going to be the type of businessman that's going to be like, okay, I got to sell action figures and I got to sell T-shirts and I got to get these kids in the seats because especially back then, kids ran the market. Kids don't run the market as much as they do anymore as they did back then. That's why, I mean, everything was a toy. All the commercials were toy commercials all the time. Not all of them, but you know what I mean. There's a lot
Yeah.
more back in the day. Now you don't see any toy commercials because all the kids are on YouTube. But like back then, TV was kids. You know.
Yeah, and it's like not to get into a whole other thing that I don't know as much about, but it's like in the '80s, suddenly there's a whole market of people that you can sell to because there are kids that now have disposable income from their parents or what. Like that's the birth of mall culture and all that shit, where everything's geared towards getting a new dollar that's a kid's dollar, and the NWA
Yeah.
is selling to adults. Like you look in the crowd in that Clash of Champions, those are grown-ups watching the NWA for the most part. Like it's dudes in that building watching wrestling because they love wrestling. And when you watch
Yeah.
the '80s WWF, it's a ton of kids because they successfully marketed to kids with cartoons and Hulk Hogan being a superhero, like you said, and like selling action figures and basically being no different than like GI Joe, Transformers, Ninja Turtles, WWF. It's all the same stuff, and WWF is a more palatable uh, product for a kid and feels safer as a parent because you're not going to watch Dusty Rhodes bleed buckets in the main event if you don't want your kid to see that. Hulk Hogan will bleed, but it's rare and it's on pay per view. Dusty Rhodes is getting attacked by the Road Warriors on TBS, and they're trying to take his eye out. Like that's
They hit
rough.
me with lead pipes.
Yeah.
They're hitting me with lead pipes.
Oh, daddy.
They're plundering me. They're plundering me.
But speaking of gimmicks and speaking of heels, I want to talk to you about the bio that I have for you today, Andrew. Uh, I want to talk to you today about George Raymond Wagner,
Okay.
better known throughout the world as wrestling's first heel, Gorgeous George.
Oh, okay. I've definitely heard the name Gorgeous George.
Yes. Gorgeous George was
Yes.
yes born in Butte, Nebraska, possibly Butte, Nebraska, Butte, on March 20.
Probably Butte, but I'm going with Butt.
Yeah, March 24th, 1915. So he's born in Nebraska. His family moves around a little bit. At the age of 7, he moves to Houston. George does, and he starts taking classes at the Y, which I've heard is a place you can go.
Yeah, it's fun to stay there.
Yeah, you could. If you're a young man, they've got many classes that you can take. Apparently,
especially if you're a young man.
Yeah,
young man.
This gave me such a laugh because this is such an early 9th or earliest 20th century thing. He dropped out of high school at the age of 14 to start taking odd jobs. No more high school for George by the time he's 14. What's that? 1928? Doesn't need it. Nothing bad's ever going to happen.
The world was just so different back then, man.
He wrestles at carnivals where he gets paid 35 cents if he wins. Right? And this is all under his original name. So by the time he's 17, he's getting booked by the region's top promoter, Morris Siegel, but he's a good amateur wrestler. He's about 5'9". He's in shape, but he's not anything special. It's just kind of white bread, right? Which is what everybody else was. But he gets this idea. He decides to marry his wife in the ring. He meets a woman named Elizabeth Hansen. They decide to get married in the ring, and the wedding draws a crowd to the wherever they ended up having it. So they decided to take it on the road, and they just started doing the marriage ceremony in different cities, reenacting the wedding that had happened. So
why are people going to this? Why are people coming?
Because it's 1930, whatever, in the late 1930s. What else are you gonna do?
It's either go see a hanging,
yeah, go see a paddling,
or
go see a hanging. Go
some
see
some guy 2 towns over. He's got a really big horse we gotta go look at
that you've heard about, or you go see George Wagner get married in the ring. So he's like, okay, there's an entertainment value to this that's not being taken advantage of. And then he sees a Vanity Fair article where there's a wrestler named Lord Patrick Lansdowne who has valets when he enters the ring and wears a velvet robe. And he's like, okay, I can do that, but what if I turn it up to 10? So 1941 in Eugene, Oregon. I don't know. I do not believe we are yet in WW2, the big one, depending on when this is in 1941. If this is after Pearl Harbor,
okay,
we're in the big one. But he debuts his quote-unquote glamour boy image at this show, and where the ring announcer introduces him as Gorgeous George, and he's antagonizing the fans by being effeminate, which you can fill in the blanks as to what you think he was doing, but nobody.
I mean, it was done. I mean, gold dust,
right? So even that type of showmanship, just calling himself Gorgeous George and doing some gestures and mannerisms, this is not a thing people were used to. And so they flip out, and so the crowds.
God, I want to see that fucking guy get his head kicked in.
I can't believe he says he's gorgeous.
So. Did he dye his hair blonde immediately? Like, because I'm seeing blonde all over the place.
No,
was that part of like the initial gimmick? Because it looks dyed.
He does eventually dye his hair whenever he moves to California to take the gimmick. So
Oh yeah.
he takes the gimmick to California, where he's known as the Humid Orchid, which I fucking love. What a name. He starts dyeing his hair blonde and growing it out long, and then he puts bobby pins in it, gold-plated bobby pins that he called Georgie's pins, and then he would give them to the crowd as he like took his hair out to wrestle. So, and then he took his ring.
I love this guy.
Yeah,
I love him.
So then he took the ring entrance, which used to just be, hey, the guy walks to the ring, you announce he's from Butt, Nebraska, whatever. And so he started doing his ring entrances.
He started coming out as from your dad's butt.
Yeah. he's
not my daddy, you son of a bitch.
I'll pay $2 and a nickel to see somebody kick this guy's ass. So he decided to take the ring entrance and really do something with it. Sometimes the ring entrance was longer than his matches, which is also hilarious because, like we talked about with one of the guys you profiled, Salina Styles Zabisco, I think, matches used to last for hours. Just
yeah.
So he like
also very funny to take a long time to get to the ring.
Yeah.
We saw that with, who did we see it with? Somebody took a long time to get to the ring, and the other guy was screaming at him like, "Come fucking hurry!" I think it was somebody who. Did we watch a Brock Lesnar match?
Yeah, we watched Brock
like an early Brock Lesnar match.
Well, we watched Brock versus Eddie. And I don't remember if that's
I think it was that.
It might have been that. Yeah.
I think Brock is in the ring.
And Eddie's like,
milking Get on with
it.
Yeah.
So he would come into the ring to Pomp and Circumstance, which is the graduation song / Macho Man Randy Savage's song.
Macho Man Randy Savage, yeah.
With a valet and a purple spotlight, wearing robes with sequins on them. Then he'd have a red carpet put down by his ring valet Jeffrey, who would carry a mirror and throw rose petals at his feet so he could admire his image in the ring before the match in the mirror.
So many guys have just done versions of a lot of these things.
My favorite, two of my favorite things that he did is once he got in the ring, Jeffries, while he was disrobing, Jeffries would spray the ring with Chanel No. 5 to disinfect the ring from everybody else who's gross. Who's been in the ring.
With perfume?
Yeah. And he said he called it Chanel No. 10. And then he would have his valet spray the referee's hands with it before he would let the referee touch him to like pat down his boots or whatever. Which is
that's so funny.
Terrific.
Am I look that this picture right here that I have up right now, that mirror that he's holding up is like my mom had that mirror. That is just like and we thought it was like 100 years old. It's like the flowery kind of rose gold.
Yeah. He was also like, once the match started, so he does all this prep work, right? He takes forever to get to the ring. The referee has to disinfect his hands. He disinfects the ring. He would immediately just cheat as hard as he could in every single match. So he's the guy who he didn't coin the phrase, I don't think, but his motto was "Win if you can, lose if you must, but always cheat." And he got so over because this is around the time when television is starting and everybody else is just in boots and tights wrestling, and this guy's a legitimate character. Like, he has mannerisms, he's a heel, he begs off, he has all of this stuff around him. And because television was looking for cheap programming and wrestling was cheap programming, they put this guy on TV and he became a huge star. Like, because he's something at the very least,
Of course he did. Yeah, of course he did.
Like, he had Lucille Ball and Bob Hope donate robes to his collection. After he was on TV, he became a national celebrity. To the point where he's getting paid 50% of the gate for his performances in the 50s. So he's making over $100,000 a year in the 50s wrestling. And remember, he could still wrestle. So Luthez, who's one of the greatest legit wrestlers of all time, NWA champion, legitimate shooter guy, was quoted as saying, Wagner could wrestle pretty well, but that he had never drawn a fan until he became Gorgeous George. So he can
Who
actually
cares,
wrestle.
Lou?
Right. Hey, guess what, Lou? Doesn't matter. Nobody wants to see an hour of two guys really wrestling.
Yeah.
His most famous
It's the
match.
modern times, Lou.
His most famous match was in 1959 against Whipper Billy Watson, who's another guy who was a legit shooter, and he had his head shaved, his treasured golden locks, according to Wikipedia, before 20,000 fans at the Maple Leaf Gardens and millions more on CBS television. So they're doing a hair versus I don't know if it was title or hair versus hair, but he's in the faces in the doo doo. You know, like they built this match. Yeah. And look at his face afterwards. Of course.
Oh, he's devastated,
He
bro.
knows
I mean, that's what is a man if not his hair?
Yeah.
So I found the newspaper clipping. It says, "Villain shorn in unexpected ending to saga of wrestling's Goldilocks. Gigi's locks are shorn as Whipper triumphs."
That's in the newspaper.
I think I have a better.
The,
I think I have a better picture of him getting his head shaved.
This is the legitimate newspaper.
Keep
So,
going,
one of his final matches.
that was like, did you say that was his most famous match?
That's what they're saying is his most famous match was against the hair match.
That's cool. Look, by the way, this is what Whipper Billy looks like, or what is his name?
Whipper Billy Watson.
Whipper Billy Watson. He looks like. I mean, what do you think he thought? You know what I mean?
Yeah. He has problematic views now.
That's a sick belt.
Yeah, that's dude.
He's got the Walt Disney mustache,
and he's got the old timey barrel chest. That guy's in shape. He's an old timey shape.
Yeah.
So one of his final matches, Gorgeous George wrestled Bruno Sammartino, who was an up and comer at that point. Bruno, of course, goes on to hold the world title for like 8 consecutive years. You know. And then he lost his hair again when he was defeated by the Destroyer in a hair versus mask match at the Olympic Auditorium in LA in 1962. That is his final match. So he loses the hair versus mask match. He's nearly 50 years old, and if you'll buy this for $1, suffering the effects of alcoholism. Oh, Gorgeous George.
Oh.
Yeah.
Who would have guessed?
Who could have foreseen
he fell to the drink.
Yep.
God damn it, I love this guy.
So after he retired, he invested $250,000 into a 195-acre turkey ranch in California, and then he used his showman skills to promote his poultry at wrestling matches. He also owned a cocktail lounge called Gorgeous George's Ringside Restaurant. If I lived in Van Nuys, I'm going to that cocktail lounge every single day. Look at him.
But
he's doing. That's a.
Whoever he looks at, he's looking at in this. He is disgusted by the guy that he is looking at.
That's a Gene Wilder look, dude. He's giving Gene Wilder right there.
Yeah. It's almost like Larry from the Three Stooges too.
Yeah.
A little bit of that.
So unfortunately, he was diagnosed with liver cirrhosis in 1962.
God damn it.
And then he had a heart attack Christmas Eve 1963 and passed away 2 days later at the age of 48 years old. The plaque at his graveside reads, "Love to our daddy, Gorgeous George." But
it doesn't even say his full name. It just says Gorgeous George.
Muhammad Ali and James Brown both credit Gorgeous George for that they stole stuff from him. Essentially, you know, the trash talk and the being a heel and the sort of flamboyant onstage persona.
Flamboyance, yeah.
Making
people a little bit uncomfortable.
Bob Dylan said that he met him one time, and then Gorgeous George winked at him and said, "You're making it come alive," meaning the music. And he said that gave him encouragement, all the encouragement he would need for years, which is pretty dope.
That is pretty sick.
He's inducted into the inaugural class of the Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame by a committee of his peers in 2002. And then in 2010, he was inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame. His 97-year-old former wife, Betty Wagner, accepted in his honor and answered questions and told stories about how he became Gorgeous George. Just like a totemic.
They're like, tell us a little bit about your husband, and then she goes, who? And
97
they just
years
start.
old, dude. That's a that's a win for her. But like just a totemic figure. Like everybody stole from Gorgeous George. He's if everybody stole from Little Richard or from Chuck Berry for rock and roll, everybody has taken from Gorgeous George. Harley Race, uh, Triple H, Ric Flair, obviously, all these guys. The fact that he's the first guy to really think, like, what if I put a little bit into this? What if I give him a character to hate, and it's in the 40s is crazy. That
What
it
if I
had,
limped up my wrists a little bit?
yeah. What if I was like, hey, they don't seem to like this guy. Let me be this guy,
Yeah.
and he ended up making $100,000 a year in the 50s. Like, and he's doing stuff that still works now. Like if there was a guy who came out and was spraying perfume on the ring mat before he wrestled, people would still hate this guy. It's evergreen.
Yeah.
The like
It's such a brilliant idea. Like, and that's the thing. Like, it seems obvious a lot of this
right.
stuff, but it seems obvious because so many people have done it.
Yeah, we've seen it. We've seen every
You know.
iteration of it. The making the referee disinfect his fingers before patting you down. It all that makes me laugh so hard. Like for this guy to
Yeah.
touch me,
Yeah.
I'm gonna need to see that he's been disinfected. And like you said, it all seems really simple, and people have turned it up to 11. I'm sure now, but like all of that stuff worked, and to be the heel and to realize like I'm probably never going to get to the top of this thing. I'm not a better wrestler than Luthez. I'm not a better wrestler than Whipper Billy Watson. Like I need to be a character for this to work is such an ingenious move.
Well, and the fact that it started with a wedding is crazy.
Yeah, well, I mean, they used to pay to see a dead body. You take a what is it? Not Billy the Kid, but like you'd take a famous guy who died on the road and show his body at all these different places because there was nothing to there's nothing else to do. You
Yeah.
what would you do all
Yeah.
day? Uh, so yeah, that's Gorgeous George. I thought it was apt given that we watched a long Ric Flair match and Flair clearly borrowed so much stuff from Gorgeous George, from the robes to the attitude, all of that stuff.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
That's one of my maybe my favorite one so far. Like, my affinity. It's got everything that I like. My affinity for like old timey wrestling figures,
Yeah.
like the barnstormers of wrestling. My affinity for chicken shit heels. My affinity for the heels that like think that like the vain heels, and my affinity for homophobia. So it is like
the
it's got a
It's
little bit of everything
yeah,
in it. You know what I mean?
it's got all the well for outing. You're really outing all the homophobes in the 40s with just perfume. They're like, God damn it, this guy buys perfume. How dare he? Uh, and he sprays it.
Oh man,
He sprays
you're
it in the ring
supposed to
where
smell like whiskey and shit.
yeah, he sprays it in the ring where all my battles, where my grapplers grapple. How dare he? Uh, I wanted to hit a couple of quick news things to talk about. Money in the Bank was this last Saturday. There is not a lot coming out of this show. Naomi won the women's Money in the Bank ladder match, so she has that contract. She's been doing some good work as a heel. Um, the other big thing that happened, Seth Rollins won the men's ladder match, which makes sense because he's the top heel on Raw right now and he's got his group that they're pushing. So that, like, that makes the most sense. The biggest non wrestling / wrestling thing to happen was our Truth returned. I don't know if you had your ear to the ground for the our Truth saga that occurred over the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, I did. They released him, and then he's back.
Facing the doo doo for WWE on this one because yeah, they announced that they weren't going to renew his contract, and I think a lot of people are finding reasons to be disenfranchised with WWE at this moment because they're doing weird stuff, pulling WrestleMania from New Orleans purely to gouge their fans for more money, and in Las Vegas is not a great look. You do that, then you say that you can't pay a beloved wrestler the contract that he is owed. Like anybody is believing that WWE couldn't pay these people more money, uh, like they're
Yeah,
hurting at this point, then like so there's a huge backlash online. They bring our Truth back under a new deal, and he's like he had a great reaction on Sunday or Saturday. He cut a really good promo on Monday. I don't know how long this lasts, but like they could do something with him in the short term here because the crowd is really into he's gone back to Ron the Truth Killings now, and he's a more serious version of himself here, which I think could work.
and I think they can do stuff with him. He can't be wrestling Roman Reigns. You can't. I just don't think like we can do that. We know they like the one thing that WWE is doing a lot, and I think what's one of the things we'll get to, which is the Gunther situation. Um, but actually less the Gunther situation, more the Jey Uso situation. They're letting the crowd book the show a lot, and I think I just because everybody likes our Truth does not mean our Truth should be shot up to the. I know he just wrestled freaking John Cena,
Yeah.
but it's like, yeah, they should book him, but they shouldn't like just because. Oh man, people like him. Guess he's a great wrestler now. You know what I mean? It's like we should have him prominently featured because people like him, but they should still kind of keep him. I think they should. I don't think they should have done the CM Punk thing. I mean the Cena thing, but just keep him away from the top, in my opinion. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think now would be an interesting time to at least he could have he could have another Cena match. You could put him for the I think given where the crowd is now, you could put him for the title and they would believe it as long as you don't do anything else to diminish him in the meantime. But he is an older guy.
I just don't think we need to do that, man.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I it depends on what all they have in line for Cena. I think you can ride this wave of momentum, to a certain extent, but then I wonder a year from now, like, and I hope things go awesome for Ron Killings because he's a really talented
Me too.
guy, and I'm
Yeah, I think he's
glad
great.
I'm glad that he got his money here because the WWF and people are like, oh, they brought him back because of the fans, and it's like that's great, but like let's not babyface WWE in this situation. Like this is a make good that's really easy for them, but it's they're still the heels in
And
almost
they
every
fired that
situation.
dude who people loved, and like yeah, TKO is
Yeah,
people aren't gonna like these guys. I'm gonna tell you, like we've talked
yeah,
about this already,
yeah,
but I'm glad our Truth, or I mean Ron Killings is getting paid. Like
yeah.
I'm glad he's on the show still.
Um, Gunther won the world title on Monday, defeated Jey Uso to win the belt back. Um, that's an interesting move. I've heard some ideas as to why they booked it this way. I'm not upset that Gunther won the title. I love Gunther. He's great. I think Jey Uso still comes out ahead in this thing because now he's had a world title reign. He's still selling a bunch of merch. He's way over. And if they want to put him back in that top spot, he's a believable guy to win a belt now. I don't know that he ever wins the belt again, but you've made a guy out of this, and now the belt's back on Gunther, and I think that there's more stories to tell that way. It feels like.
Yeah, and it's just in my opinion, a more legitimate champion. Like I think like we've talked about this before. I think one of the tragedies of modern professional wrestling is the fact that the conversation surrounding whether or not Jey Uso should be champion is in any way involves how many T-shirts he sells,
Right.
right?
Well,
It's like
I don't
it's
know that that should
and
be
you
an external conversation. It's probably an internal conversation. You know.
yeah, but
Yeah.
I'm just saying like when even like fans any fans who aren't like 7, like inevitably when conversations about like who should be the champ and stuff, it's like who draws more money, like all these, it's way too meta, you know.
Yeah.
But I guess that we've talked about this, the toothpaste is out of that tube, and I don't know if we're gonna fix that, but like that's kind of the reason that Jay became champion, you know. And
Yeah.
like it was kind of like I don't. By the way, I don't know what grown men are buying Yeet shirts, but
Look, man, there's a whole bunch of wrestling shirts that I'll never understand why they sold money, or
yeah,
why they sold
I
so
know.
many. But
Yeah, it's true.
yeah, I think some of the idea is that Gunther is going to wrestle Goldberg, which I hate unless
I know.
Gunther
Yeah,
wins that
that's the
match.
worst thing I've ever heard in my
Uh,
life. Yeah, it's the worst thing in my life.
and I've also heard about there being a Gunther babyface run, which I don't see, and I'm not sure I want. I like Gunther as the heel who's better than everyone. He did an interview after he won the belt where he's in the backstage and he's like, normally somebody wins or gets a giant accomplishment and there's everybody's back here to celebrate. There's nobody back here right now. And guess what? I love it. He's like, I don't need
Yeah,
friends. I like being the champion. That's it. And like he's so good as that heel, and I don't know that I see the babyface side of that. Maybe he'll surprise me, but it's like he's the best wrestler and he's a bully and he beats people up. That's why people like Gunther. And when you turn him babyface, I don't know that he's got the personality that endears people to him. You know what I mean? It doesn't work in my mind.
I could see him in like a. I'm trying to think of the of an example of it in movies because I know it's happened a lot of times in movies. The asshole that has to take care of the slightly weaker baby face, you know, where
Yeah.
like he sees something like it's like Cop and a Half. Have you seen Cop and a
Yeah,
Half?
yeah. I mean, who's the kid in this scenario? With
So Burt Reynolds is an asshole
yeah,
in that movie, right?
yeah,
He's got to take care of this kid who like is like over anxious, and he thinks he's a real cop, and he like walks in like all these things, and Burt Reynolds has to always like kind of like save him in certain ways.
yeah.
It's almost like that where like you if there was a cruiserweight situation, this would work better, or a woman, a girl, that would be sick. If like there's a girl, yeah, okay, girl babyface,
Yeah,
but she's small.
yeah.
So I'd pick one. I don't care. One of the Japanese ones, whatever you
Sure,
want to do. You know what I mean?
sure.
Little one. I need a little one, really little. Is being bullied by Rhea Ripley.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And Gunther's not going to fight Rhea,
right.
but Gunther ends up or is being bullied by Rhea and Rhea's people
Sure.
because you can't have Gunther just freaking chop Rhea in the chest.
Right.
But like then Gunther becomes the enforcer or something. I don't know.
Yeah,
I can see something like that
you,
where Gunther's fighting for good. He's not necessarily like a charismatic
right.
good guy.
He's the Terminator in Terminator 2, where he's now protecting John
There you
Connor
go.
instead. Yeah, that you could do. I just think they ask a lot of their baby faces in terms of like selling merch and having catchphrases and stuff, and I don't want Gunther to be like a catchphrase baby face.
Yeah,
You know
no,
what I
you
mean?
definitely don't
Like,
want that.
yeah,
I
that's
think he works best, like, and what you're saying, he works best when he's transcending the role of babyface or heel. He's just kind of a mean fucking
ass kicking
bruiser.
machine.
You know what
Yeah,
I mean?
and
And he's
depending on
also
who's
German, so
right,
like,
and depending on whose ass he's kicking, I'm either cheering for him or hoping he loses. You know, that would be fine.
yes,
But
absolutely.
last thing, I know it's your favorite subject to discuss. We have to discuss it. One Phil Brooks is heading to Saudi Arabia to wrestle John Cena at Night of Champions. Now, this is normally not a big deal, except
What are you
there you
talking,
go.
dude? What are you talking about, dude?
Yep. Look, I I'm a big CM Punk fan. I've been a defender.
Oh man, he's principled, dude. Have you seen his tattoos?
Yeah, and
Phil Brooks he stands up for what he believes in. He's Punk. Did you know he's Punk?
I
And that he's the only real guy in this entire industry who stands for his laurels.
yeah.
We have a tweet up, by the way, everybody who's listening to the audio, where CM Punk tweeted, "Go suck a blood money covered dick in Saudi Arabia, you fucking dork," to the Miz.
Yeah, because the Miz is easy to bully because the Miz is a company man and he always did the company thing, and he didn't wrestle on
Yeah.
the indies and didn't quote unquote pay his dues the same way. And look, I wouldn't I'm exhausted at the idea of bringing it up because the company you work for does business with shitty people. That's unfortunate. So I understand that
It sucks.
you still have a
Yep.
job that you have to do, except when you're a guy who makes the stand of it not being a thing you want to do and you harass the other people about it, and then now you're doing it. Like, he's going to have to cut a hell of a promo or do a hell of a 180 to figure out how to make himself not look like a hypocrite, because he's put himself in this position. I don't care like who goes to Saudi Arabia or not. I understand that sometimes you're put in a shitty situation, except this guy seems to have done it to himself, and that's what happens when you put 10 toes down on something and then you got to go back on it, you know. Like
He thought there's no chance I'm ever going back to WWE. This is a safe thing for me to say. This is a safe way for me to posture and make myself look better than everybody. This is going to get, first of all, it's going to get a lot of likes. I bet this tweet got a lot of likes.
Yeah.
It's going to really be big with the progressive wrestling contingent of people that he has pandered to for a very long time.
Yeah.
In like genuine ways and not so genuine ways. For the record, like, I do believe that Phil Brooks is for a lot of the causes that he has championed in his career. I do believe he's a real guy in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But you just have to understand, like, it's hard for somebody to say no to headlining a big pay-per-view in Saudi Arabia. Like, I give people full credit. It's awesome when they don't go do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know that I could say no to that. In all reality, I think Saudi Arabia stinks. I think they've done terrible things to a lot of different people. They probably had something to do with 9/11. They throw gay dudes off of the buildings. Like, there's a lot of bad things that Saudi Arabia does. But if I'm a professional wrestler and they're throwing the bag at me, like, it's the same thing for like the golfers. Like, I know people that are like, you know, the golfers that go to the Live Tour, they see what's happening. They're like, oh, you're going to take that blood money in Saudi Arabia. It's like, dude, it's like close to $500 million.
It's not dissimilar to the many conversations that we've had. Like, it's really easy to say that you would not sell out when no one is asking you to sell out, and then when selling out is a viable option, it becomes increasingly more difficult to not do it. And I think he deserves the criticism that he's getting, because he's been so. You can't be as vocal as he's been and then back down from critiques of the things you've said. Like, you know, the same thing with when he told MJF that he could go main event 2-night buy one get one free WrestleMania, and turns out CM Punk didn't main event the buy one get one free, but he did main event night one of a 2-night WrestleMania. Look, like, the internet lives forever. Those things get reposted. Like you said, it's very difficult. But I know that there are guys who didn't go, who have decided to not go in the past, And that's a principled stand that I'm sure cost them money, and I'm sure that they were comfortable with that. So it's like, if no one's making you go, and then you decide to go, whatever your reasons are your reasons, and that's fine. But it does become a news story because you were the other guy before. Like, that's kind of where we're at. So we'll see what happens. There's still time for them to kind of bait and switch it, I guess. But I doubt they do that. I think this match happens.
You can't. I don't think you can. Like, I don't think you can do that. And like, he deleted the tweet. I don't know when he deleted the tweet. It's not there anymore.
Right.
Literally, the first thing and I'm not joking about this, I saw Rydia season, CM Punk versus John Cena. I immediately searched on Twitter from CM Punk, Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
Because I knew he at some point had done something like this.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, immediately, it wasn't there. So, but then I Googled it.
Yeah.
And of course there was a tweet.
The internet lives forever.
Of course he had done that.
Yeah.
And it's just like, the only thing he can do now, there's no promo, there's nothing. The only thing he can do is they do post. I don't even think they'd allow him to do this in a post. Whatever they're calling them, the press conferences. He has to either make a video or do an interview on the side, being Phil Brooks, and say, yes, I did tweet that. Yes, I completely understand why people are mad at me for tweeting that, and then going, it is a hypocritical thing of me to do 100%. This is why I'm doing it, and this is why I'm okay doing it.
Yeah.
And at that point, some people aren't going to forgive him, but I would completely salute the guy for doing that. Like, just own up to it. It's easy to do that, what he did. I understand that he's a public figure. Own up to it. Don't hide from it.
Yeah,
don't tell me that you're some punk rock guy anymore.
Yeah, the trouble would be if there was no response, because then that just leaves you beg the question. Like you said, if whatever his answer is not going to satisfy a certain segment of people, and I am in a 100%. I am in a certain way empathetic to his situation, because when you talk a lot and you talk out loud and you have those like stances and you don't think anything's ever going to change, you might say something that later you're going to have to take back. And that's, that makes it tough. But then you got to decide if you're a person who owns up to that or not. Because I think that's what people are waiting for now. It's like, what are you going to do about it? And the storyline seems to kind of be that he doesn't really want to go, which I feel like is interesting on the one hand, but I doubt the government of Saudi Arabia is stoked to have the fact that they have human rights violations that people they pay millions of dollars to don't like being aired out on the TV show before they go to Night of Champions. Like,
as soon as it airs, freaking Triple H's phone starts ringing.
Yeah,
like,
you took the you took the money, dude. And once you take the money, that's that's the way it goes. So that,
because even now, if he doesn't go through this match, if like he pulls out or whatever, you helped promote this match.
Right.
It is now the line has been crossed. It's done, and it's not a line that I set.
Right.
This isn't me saying Phil Brooks is a dickhead for going to Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
This is a line that he said.
Right.
And that's... you can't. The problem is, like, he's always been, like we talked about, he's always been the everybody's fake but me. I'm the only real guy in this industry.
Yeah.
Everybody hates me because I'm fucking realer than they are, like that blowhard documentary that we watched about him.
Yeah.
And it's like, you are what you're saying that you are is a really hard thing to be.
Yeah.
And like, it's something that I'm not. Like, I contradict myself a lot, and I say things even on this podcast that like I go, fuck, I didn't mean that, or I shouldn't have said that, or like I was probably uninformed when I said that. But I don't go around telling everybody I'm fucking perfect.
Right.
You know?
Well, and it's like,
anyway.
I mean, John Cena has decided to not go before. Sami Zayn didn't go. And and Kevin Owens didn't go with him once, I believe, out of solidarity. Yeah. Daniel Bryan had decided not to go. If any, because now Sami's been, And I think some of that was there were safety issues involved. And like for anybody that doesn't go, whatever your reason, I completely understand. And that if you decide to go at some later point, that is also your personal decision to do that. But I've never seen anybody do the thing that he's done and be as loud about it, and then it still happens. So I think there's something secondarily that like I guess he doesn't owe anybody anything, but it really is a bad look if you decide not to, it's hanging out there. There's nothing
If
you can do about it.
if you want the social credit for that comes with saying the first that comes with criticizing the Miz,
Right.
then you better cash that check when it's time for you to say yes or no.
Yeah.
Like because the Miz is gonna go, but the Miz isn't gonna tell everybody else, hey, you're taking blood money, suck a dick, like all that
Right.
stuff.
And I
I
don't
mean,
think
the
the
Miz
Miz
is
is
probably not the nicest guy in the world, but you know what
but
I
I
mean.
don't think the Miz is a bad person necessarily for going. Like I said, you work for an
No, not at all.
you work for an
I
employer. Sometimes that's not it's not 100% up to you, like uh so
It sucks.
yeah, so sometimes it sucks. But well, this is probably the second thing we've said the most on this podcast. CM Punk wants to be Ian McKay from Minor Threat and Fugazi, who has hardline
Yeah.
stances, but that dude, to my understanding, has never went back on them, which good or bad for him. Like to his detriment, he's like, we don't do interviews in corporate magazines that have cigarette and liquor ads. If you want our interview, don't
Yeah.
have those ads, and we'll gladly do an interview with you. And they wouldn't not take the ad revenue, so he said no, and that probably cost his band a lot of money. I'm sure Ian McKay sometimes an annoying dude to be around, but he had like when you want to be that guy, you got to be that guy. That's how it goes.
That's just, and it's the same thing with like Christian guys or like anybody who truly says that they believe something. It's like I uh I completely um I admire that. I
Yeah,
admire the like I'm not going to shop there because they uh profit off of human rights violations, or I'm not going to do all these things. I'm not going to do this because it's bad for the environment. I'm going to go vegan because I don't think we should hurt animals, like all those things.
right.
Some of those things I agree with. Some of those things I think are misguided in certain ways sometimes. But like I always admire, because I'm not that principled for almost anything. I hate AI. I
Yeah,
use ChatGPT as a Google search because it's like as a Google search, it's a pretty cool thing. You know what I mean?
right.
I hate a lot of the ways that it's used in a lot of ways, and I wish it would fall off the face of the planet. And like, I think it's immoral in a lot, but I still use it. Like, if I really like had like let my nuts hang, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
I would never use it for anything because I wouldn't give them the whatever revenue they get from it.
yeah,
It's like I don't want to train their AI. I don't want to do all those things, but it makes my life easier. So like sometimes I'm gonna do it, and that's fine as long as I don't go around like poo pooing everybody who uses AI.
yeah. And make it a
Anyway,
loud part of your
I've
thing.
reiterated my stance
Yeah,
too many
I
times.
think I think we're good on
Yeah,
that. Those are the big news stories, and if something happens, we can update those things. But I think that's it for this week. Thank you to everybody who listens. Like Andrew said, there's all the socials you can follow us on. If there's a social and we've heard about it, we're on it. So give us a listen to those.
except for Truth Social.
Except for Truth,
I'm not gonna
right?
go on Truth Social.
Very true. I forgot about Truth Social. I pretend
We
I
are
haven't
on
heard about it.
Tooth Social though.
But that's mostly for
Yeah,
my
we
wisdom
are we
tooth
are on.
stories.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
for those only that we're gonna release all of our breakdowns of Dr. Isaac Yankum matches on Tooth Social.
Yeah, we're seeking investors now for seed money for Tooth Social. Uh, so get on board with that. Andrew mentioned it in passing last week. If you're listening to this and you have a match you want us to cover or an event or something famous that happened in wrestling, let us know, man. Well, I can fit it in. It's a pretty flexible schedule. And I'd love to hear what people want to hear about beyond just what I think is cool. So thank you to everybody who listens.
Yes.
We appreciate you very much.
What are we doing next week?
Next week, we are covering the British Bulldogs, Davey Boy Smith and Dynamite
Oh
Kid's
yeah.
WWF career. So we're covering
Awesome.
important matches from their career, a couple of important angles. You get to see the Dynamite Kid when he's maybe the best wrestler in the world, and unfortunately, what happened to him
Okay.
after he wasn't quite the best wrestler in the world anymore.
I was gonna ask. I was gonna ask if we're gonna see like good Dynamite Kid stuff because like a lot of times people get to WWE outside of their prime, but it's I just want to make sure we saw that because I don't want to like spend time on Dynamite Kid and then not see like the Dynamite Kid because I've heard he's amazing. I've just never seen him. You know.
Yeah, there's some really good. I tried to pick the best stuff from the WWF and like a couple of their big angles. Some interviews. I'm going to do my best to give you a full scope of what they were like in WWF.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah. So that'll be next week. Until then, wait to hear Andrew's opinions about Matilda, the British Bulldog.
Oh fuck yeah, dude! I'm excited for that.